Morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming, attending the summit, being part of it, and this particular session. A little bit about us before we start. It's been about 10 years since we started the CISO platform community. And the idea was to be able to create collaboration among senior security executives and to create tangible community goods that people can use and not at a cost, free of course. Uh, Over the years, we are now about 40,000 odd members strong across the globe. We've created more than about, I think, more than 1,000 odd checklists, frameworks, training material. We've got multiple task forces, and all this has been possible because of our member base. Thank you so much. This is the member base which has come out to speak to you. All these speakers that we have over this session, we have about 45 hours of sessions with about speakers. Each one of them has come forward with the core principle of the of the community of the of CISO platform to want to contribute. Thank you so much for it. We appreciate your taking out time. Participants too, thank you very much. Saturday morning, you've taken out time to be able to be part of this. I hope these sessions are being interesting and useful to you. Do write to us, tell us what you think about these sessions. Also, be a part of the community, contribute. We'd love to be able to learn from you as well, whether it's blogs, whether it's articles, post it on the platform. If you can't post, send it to us at CISO at contact@cisoplatform.com and or of course anywhere on the social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Today's session is we're going to be discussing 10 visibility gaps that every CISO must fill, particularly at this time that we are in. We're joined by Vijay Bharti, who is the Senior Vice President and the CISO of Happiest Mind Technologies. We've got Vijay Kumar Verma, who is the VP and the Head Cybersecurity Engineering at Geo Platforms. We've got Vikas Singh, who is the CISO of Manka. And we've got Dr. Lopamudra Basu, who is the Executive Director, Cyber Risk and Information Security at Cisinova Infotech. Lopa will also moderate this session. Before I pass this on to Lopa to continue, just a quick request to all the participants, if you have any questions, please put them down in the question section. We will address them. I will get the panel to address it at the end of the session. Lopa, all yours.
Thank you, Meera, for giving such a nice introduction of the panel. CISO is a very critical C-cadre role and continuously emerging in a multifaceted way. It is no more a business support function or business enabler function. It starts taking the front face of the business. And with that, the expectation is increasing continuously. Expectation, as I mentioned, multifaceted. CISO as a strategy enabler. Sometimes board is looking from the perspective of governance leader, compliance leader. CISO is also performing a critical role as a security officer and execution officer, a great collaborator, innovation catalyst, and above all, a value appropriator. While playing such a multifaceted role, it is very important. There are certain factors which make the difference, not in CISO's day-to-day activity. It's also make the huge difference in the security posture of the organization. Today, we are going to focus a 10 visible gap or visibility gap which make that difference. I'm privileged to have such a knowledgeable panel, and let's start the discussion. So first, Vikash, I would request you to give a short introduction, and then in your view, what is the strategic gap that trigger the visibility issue in a security function, and how a CISO can address them?
Hi, Lopa. Thank you very much for the introduction. I am presently CISO of NICA for the last 6 months, and before that, I have had a very varied career both in the Indian Army, as in telecommunications, IT, and information security, where I've served all across India. And also for the last 2 years, before NICA, for 2 years, I was heading information security and business continuity at Max Life Insurance. I've always had a passion for information security, and I think there's so much which needs to be done in this field. So, and I'm fortunate to be part of this field. And besides doing various certifications, I've also always been involved in understanding the nuts and bolts of information security. And I think CISO platform provides a great opportunity to learn, contribute, and also share. In fact, I have attended quite a few of these earlier sessions and found each one of them better than the other, and learned very trips. I mean, even after 20 years, I'm learning new things every day. I think that's how the whole environment is changing. So, coming to your question about the strategic uh, issues and how we need to address those gaps, I think if you take it very simply, what first you need to understand, I think, is very important to, from a CISO's perspective, is to understand what is the business all about. That means if you are in the e-commerce industry, what is your core role? Is it technology? Are you in risk management? Now, it would vary. So I think understanding your own role first is very important. Which side of the are you part of the risk team or are you part of the technology team? And then accordingly, you will understand what area you're looking after. But from an organization perspective, I think knowing what the business is doing, what is important to the business, what are the crown jewels, is it your main website? Is it the customer personal data? Is it compliance to regulatory requirements? And this is from a strategic angle. And then I think sometimes what we do is we tend to lose focus while thinking only about the strategic aspects, and that is what I think most when we transition from a technology to a business role, either if they do it very well, they forget technology or they do it. And I think I also would tend to suffer from that to some extent. So you also need to keep your ground very clear from the technology perspective. And I think Colonel Vijay would also, I think, reiterate the same point that when he handled GeoSoc, knowing your external attack surface as to what is the breadth is one of the major gaps which you need to fill. Knowing what all is part of your organization's attack surface and what all is the organization using is a very important factor. So if you know what you are protecting, and then if you are able to prioritize within that, because you can't put all the effort in one area. So being able to prioritize that, and then having from a NIST framework, having the concept of identifying things, being able to have the protections in place, being able to detect attacks, and finally the ability to respond and recover. So I think if you look at the NIST perspective and you focus on each of the 5 areas equally, I think that would be one of the ways to go about plugging these gaps there. But just to reiterate, from my main perspective, know what you're protecting. It is contextual. I am saying every business would have a different one. Knowing from a technology angle what is your attack surface, and then identifying over the NIST framework or any suitable framework if you choose, are you addressing all the areas equally? And finally, first, I think one of the most important reasons which I have found, which I'm still struggling with, is to have a good security team in place. Very essential, which is able to support you and do the job, because that's how you'll be able to reach out to various the business and the technology teams and be able to contribute, because there's so much going on everywhere. You need to be aware, you need to be participating in all those discussions. And sometimes this is a challenge because today CISO's role is still not really a part of the CISO. So you are one rank below. So how do you come to know of those areas that you need to concentrate on? You need to speak to the business heads, and obviously everyone's busy. So you need to find time and then raise what you're doing and just keep checking and rechecking whether those areas are good or not. You need to speak to the people one level below, that's DRs to the CXOs, and understand what is important to them. And then when you introduce your policies and your tech checks, you can check whether they are relevant or not. I think this is what is my view, and I will be able to give some further suggestions going forward.
Thank you, Vikas. Let's have a look on the risks part. Security and risks is going hands on hands. Since risks is there, security is existing. And when it is coming to the risks, right? Technology risks is very different compared to other risks like financial risks, regulatory risks. Technology itself is a domain when it is coming to risks. So my question to Vijay Varti, what is the role of technology risk management in the overall organizational security posture?
Sure. Thanks, Lopa. I hope you guys can hear me. So my name is Vijay Bharti. I'm
Yeah.
the CISO for Happiest Minds. I also head the security practice for Happiest Minds, right? This which helps us to deliver some of these solutions to our end customers, right? So I get a view from both sides. Now, I mean, we all agree we live in a technology world, right? And technology is influencing all of our life, work, and all of the realms which we are part of. And specifically, when we talk about cyber security, when we talk about overall security, it's very important for us to really understand what are the kind of risks which are getting introduced, which are getting into your system because of the adoption of various technology elements which you have. If you look at how IT is being delivered from last a few years, right, there's a tremendous amount of change in which we are delivering IT solutions, services to our end customers, right? Right from your traditional completely on-premise data centers, right, where you have those 3-tier applications securely and safely sitting within your data center, within the locks and keys. Today, it's distributed all across the globe, right? Technologies like microservices, technologies like containers, Dockers, when you start looking at serverless computing, right? I mean, today, if you have to set up a 3-tier application, you really don't need to set up any machine at all, right? You can go to any PaaS as a service or services as a service vendors and take database as a service, take web rule as a service, take front end app server as a service. So given that all these technology changes, right? I mean, a CISO, it's very important for CISOs to really understand what are those risks which are getting introduced because of these change in technology elements. Very simple, right? I mean, I talked about moving from, let's say, on-prem to cloud. Things were a little easier when we were going on to a single cloud. Then suddenly we started adopting multi-cloud, and now we are looking at a hybrid cloud environment. So even if you just think from your security operations perspective, right, your basic situational awareness through log management. Now, how do you keep it consistent when these workloads, when these technologies are moving across different workspaces, right? How do you create a situational awareness of your organization from a risk perspective, which can give you capabilities to look visibility into AWS, into Azure, into your SaaS applications, into your on-prem applications. Similarly, some of those traditional parameter security which we used to do, right, and entire applications, right? You create a DMZ, you create some level of database activity monitoring for your databases. The entire gamut of things changes when you start adopting serverless architectures, right? Then you have to really start focusing on how do you really start building security in the code itself, right? There has to be much more focused in terms of how do we start looking at security right at the source system. So given the pace at which the technology is changing, given at the pace at which the way we have been delivering IT has been changing, shadow IT itself was one of the problem, right? Where CISOs were not getting complete visibility in terms of what kind of technology adoption businesses are doing. That risk is now enhanced multifold because the way these technologies works also is very, very different than earlier they were working traditionally in your data centers. So a very deep understanding in terms of what are the various tools, technologies which businesses are going to adopt to deliver to the end customers. Have a thorough understanding of what are those risks which are involved in adoption of those tools and technologies. And of course, what are the various ways and means to really visibility and planning. Once you really start looking at the technology aspects of risk management and how do you bridge the visibility gap into your overall security strategy.
Thank you, Vijay. Now I'm moving to Vijay. Vijay, when it is coming to the security part, one of the critical thing is day to day when we are handling end-to-end requirement of security, but it is very important how we are creating a security visibility heat map. So and what are the major components we are capturing and how they are related to KPI, so we can demonstrate that clearly to management, and which will in turn going to help us to get a kind of huge visibility. Could you please help us to understand that part, because this is one of the most critical areas.
Okay, thank you, Lopa, and thank you, CISO Platform, for giving an opportunity for me to discuss the visibility gaps, the visibility maps which a CISO needs to create. So what I do and what a CISO has to do is create few panels ready with him. Let us say, starting with the business first, that what is your most critical say revenue generating application or the portal, and then starting with that you can list down your business support systems, your operational support systems, as far as their criticality as well as availability to the business is concerned. So once you have made that, you also have to categorize a different leadership in that. There will be certain business heads, there will be certain delivery heads who are delivering these solutions, and secondly there will be certain operations heads. So these are the key people where you need to have a key contact area so that they can apprise you in the beginning itself if something is getting developed or something is in the pipeline where the business is going to release it. And secondly, after that, you need to have a kind of a shift left approach where you dovetail the security in the beginning in the development cycle as early as possible, because it will be very difficult once the product is just going live and then you try to implement your security controls in that. So most of the people will treat you as a bottleneck, whereas you should act as yourself and as an enabling for the business. So with this kind of a thing, if you have created your map regarding what business is doing, what deliveries are coming ahead, and where are the challenges and what are the operational things and the critical incidents going around there. With this basic metric prepared, you can create a kind of a heat map, whereas you dovetail this information with the kind of tools which are available, which will enable you to create a protection controls as well as detection controls and enable a defense in depth, and where you put certain tabs there which the feeds can go to your SOC, the feeds can go to your patching cycles where the vulnerabilities are fixed on a periodic basis. So on the basis of this, because you will be also limited with the capacity of the tools at your hand, and you need to dovetail and map these tools onto the criticality of the business functions that you have. Let me cite an example. Let us say for us, let us say Jio.com is the primary site. So you need to see what all weaknesses can be exploited. They can be related to the input points or the exposure points that you have. Then you need to have that in order to protect this, do you have ample controls at a network level, at the application level, as well as, and from this, do you have a WAF or say NIDS or HIDS or different kind of a solution, and do you have a monitoring capability whether these assets, whatever front ends, back ends, or middleware systems, they're all covered. And then if they're all covered, so they are adequately getting monitored or not. Then you can have a matrix prepared out of this, that how many attacks you're getting, let us say on the basis of category of attacks, Another thing is say category geographic wise, which geographic is attacking with the most. And next category is which are the exposure points which are getting attacks at the maximum. Then on the basis of this, you can further get a feedback loop where you can tighten these controls. You may be able to find out gaps which are there in the protective controls. You may be able to find the gaps which are in your detection. So with this, you start with one of the top critical app and then move towards secondly, thirdly, and another apps in that scenario. So I think if you can focus your strategy around this, and you can have a daily overlook or daily review with one of the critical app and complete a full cycle with it. So this will be able, you will be able to cover all the gaps, infrastructure and the exposure points.
When it is coming to security, one of the most important thing is the organizational culture. And that actually going to boost the security posture or risk posture overall within the organization. So my question to Vikas, what are the practices that can adopt to plug the cultural visibility gap within an organization?
Lupa, I think one of the biggest, I would say, initiatives or steps which you can take is to firstly understand what is the existing culture of the organization, what is the way your employees are responding to security incidents or reporting them, and also have then build a security awareness and a security awareness and I think culture or build a culture. But I think build a culture is a very big word. First and foremost, it just needs to have very simple practical steps in start sending out some newsletters, emailers. Unfortunately, what happens is over time, our email tools are so sophisticated nowadays that your IT security's mail lands up in the promotions box, or you have a label for it and you just mark it, like the way we do for HR mails. So we have to figure out a way. Then you have to incentivize people. I think incentivize people to contribute, do one-on-one sessions, give some practical examples. Like I'll give you an example. We did a session for customer service, our customer service team. So what we did was we asked all of them to fill in their email addresses in Have I Been Pwned, and then tell them how many people, who is the winner of the maximum number of pwned emails. So there was one person whose personal email had been leaked in around 18 such places. So that firstly gives you immediate attention. That is one tactical issue. Then you have to do, now you have to tailor it to various, for example, for the technology team, more a capture of the flag kind of system where you actually show a vulnerability within your system or others may affect. From a board to board and a senior management perspective, you need to show them the risk factor. That means maybe a more strategic thing, and that in that case, it may be sometimes beneficial to get a external speaker to come and talk about his views and opinions. So now that is one thing which I feel. But the aim should be to enhance security awareness, try and build a culture, and I think it takes time. In India, we are not sometimes deeply affected by cybercrime ourselves. So the tendency carries on. A simple example would be if you ask your users how they secure their own home laptops, vis-a-vis how a corporate laptop is secured. There's a huge amount of difference. So, for example, what we've been doing is we've been asking users, or in our sessions, asking users how do they secure the laptops, and tell them these simple steps. If they secure their own personal Gmail by two-factor authentication, they'll understand why two-factor authentication is there, and not take it as a big, what you say, impediment to their use, to their day-to-day use. Then such similar examples could be given. I'm just saying, trying to give practical use cases, try and make them aware that why this do they need to be aware, and how having a security culture or a mindset would help them in their own personal life, wherever they are, whether they're in this organization or going forward. And today that's the reality. We are seeing incidents happening at the personal level immensely. So, in fact, in one of the sessions we also did was we asked people to evaluate their own cybersecurity risk assessment score. So if you evaluate your own cyber assessment score and you find yourself, that could be one way of stepping forward and enhancing, doing the same, building the same best practices in the organization.
Thank you, Vikash. Tools play a very important role in information security, IT security, or cyber security. Everywhere we are implementing control is actually we are implementing it through the technology. So when it is coming to the tool, my question to Vijay Bharti, how can how can they be used effectively to boost the security overall visibility in the organization?
Sure. Thanks, Lopa. Yeah, definitely, right. I mean, as we have been discussing, right. I mean, there are multiple aspects here when we look at in terms of how do we create some of the heat maps, right, and how do we get information from the infrastructure, from the applications, right, in terms of what's the right security posture. So if you look at from a visibility perspective, let's look at one internally from a CISO perspective, right? And secondly, also let's say externally how the world views you. So internally, there have been a lot of effort, ways, and mechanisms which CISOs have been adopting to be able to create some level of visibility in terms of what's the current level of security, right? What's the maturity of security? You really start with some of your basic, let's say, vulnerability management exercises, your penetration testing exercises, which gives you some view of what are those vulnerabilities, what are those exploitable weaknesses in the system which somebody can leverage. Going on to, let's say, setting up a security operations center where you are looking at the various events, the various audit functions, information which is coming out of these two various infrastructure elements, and thus trying to establish a kind of visibility in terms of what's happening within the infrastructure and where can be those security gaps. A lot of advancements happening in all these areas, right? I mean, traditionally now, if you look at SOC, we are all aware it's more evolving towards how we can leverage a better level of machine learning analytics to really start looking at some of the behavior, some of the attributes which were traditionally hidden, right? How can you do more analytics around the data which you have captured? How can you do more analytics around the behavior of users or entities, traditional UEBA, what we call as, right? So some of these tools will definitely help us to look at those gaps which were not very evident earlier. Similarly, there are a lot of advancements, for example, red teaming, right? Today, there are tools which can help you to automate the entire process of red teaming and do it at a much better frequency than doing it once in a year, kind of this one, right? So that gives you a very clear overview of what is the strength of controls, various controls which you have deployed within your environment. What kind of security capabilities. See, it's not only about what the tool is capable of, right? But it's also how well it is configured, how well the policies are defined. So traditionally, some of the CIES and NIST benchmarking, which companies used to do manually, they all can be easily automated leveraging tools, which gives you those results much quicker, much better. Similarly, you look at certain other technologies, right? For example, let's say honeypots, which or deception technologies, right, which can help you unearth some of the hidden infections or malwares within your organization. Threat intelligence, I would definitely say, plays a very important role, and that's where when I was talking about both internal as well as external understanding of the gaps, right? What are the exploitability? So, for example, today you would have heard about cyber rating services, right, which can look at your posture from as an outside and try to score you over your maturity of the security configurations within your environment, right? The similar things you can do internally. We have been very actively using, for you talk about culture, right? And how do you inculcate as a habit? So today there are good can do help you in do phishing simulations, your phishing and social engineering attacks. Based on the score which you have, devise a very well structured training and awareness program, and on an ongoing basis monitor, right, in terms of what's the level of increase in terms of awareness. So in all spheres, I would definitely say that there's a lot of tools and technologies are coming to help. I talked about cloud, right? So there are now good tools available which can help you see the status of your compliance and any weaknesses in terms of how you have configured security, whether it is AWS or Azure, or even let's say serverless architectures on the container side of things. So as the challenges evolve, I think there's a lot of innovation also which is happening in technology space from a security perspective. And we as a CISO community must be looking at some of these new innovations and how we can adopt them and in terms of enhancing our visibility into our security posture.
Thank you, Vijay. Now, if we look at the recent attacks, we can evident that very clearly the sophistication of attack is continuously increasing. Also, the surface, because of business is going more and more digital, so with that attack surface also increasing. Considering this two aspect, it is very important for the security heads or organization to move the security left due to the dynamic velocity of this particular function. So architecture, that has become very, very important. My question to Vijay Kumar, what are the best way to address the architectural gap? Because, most of the organization are mature and there are certain things already rolled out. There are new technologies coming in with kind of new set of vulnerability. Considering that, how do you address this architectural gap?
Okay, Lopa, that is a very valid question. The kind of solutions which are coming up now, people are going to Google Cloud or maybe Azure and then AWS with a mix of on-prem solutions. The security team has to understand all and maybe design their architecture assessment templates. So what I will categorize that you need to have 5 strong pillars of your architecture assessment. The first pillar, the foremost pillar that you have is a compliance, where if your applications are in the domain or you need to comply with the local laws there. So either the first thing is your local regulatory bodies, their compliance, and ideally then you should pick up like either PCI or NIST or some standard framework, then overlay on the local compliance rules on that. And this is the first pillar that you need to design. And this pillar has to now percolate to different deployment models. I said that all 3 places of cloud models, you may have your own OpenStack cloud models as well, because the same template cannot be applied to each kind of a hosting environment. Sometimes on the cloud, since they are PaaS and other SaaS services are also available, where these models and templates, they have to vary. The second thing which the pillar is your infrastructure assessment, both from your network perspective as well as from your host protection and detection perspective. Then you had to have another focus is on identity management and how the rules are getting made. Do you have a central structure in place? Do you have local identities? And how the identities they federate across all these environments. You cannot be creating a different tenants in all environments for different application, and your focus has to be there with the central infra. The third pillar I will tell you is regarding your zero trust, where you need to identify and map your application as far as different security zones in your organization is concerned. You need to see whether adequate encryption measures, both for data at rest and data at flight, they have to be in place. And as far as authentication mechanisms, the third pillar I will say is defense in depth. So you need to plan your protection controls at different layers, so that even if one parameter is breached, you have second parameter. And then with a defense in depth, you may like to place like sensors, your honeypots, or certain kind of things which are in between, which are able to monitor and detect attacks not only from the external perspective, but if somebody is trying to do a lateral movement within your network. Then on top of it, the defense at your application layer. I think WAF is the ideal tool which can map and identify the controls and detect the attack at the application layer. And it can also tell you what all your endpoints are exposed, what all services are exposed. Especially WAF will be an excellent tool in gathering the attacks onto your API exposure points where people are trying with different kinds of injection attacks. There people are trying different kind of enumeration attacks. Then with respect to this, I think a separate thing and a separate API assessment needs to be dovetailed as a separate vertical in itself. Because in current day scenario, no app is complete where you don't have any API flows. So most of the time we have also matured over a period of time where we were leaving APIs as a part of application assessment. But that has to be now assessed as a different architecture pillar. I think with this kind of an assessment, where you have the inventory list also coming from the application and where it is collaborated with your automated discovery scans as well. So with this, your gaps or visibility gaps as far as your controls, they will get addressed. So considering these 5 pillars which I told you, compliance, defense in depth, your infra, zero trust, as well as your application layer controls, including your API assessments, that will complete your architecture visibility gap. And you need to design and map these pillars in different environments, because they different environments work differently and there will be different controls and different kind of assessment in each of them. Yeah, Lopa.
Thank you, Vijay. As you very correctly nailed that, compliance is one of the major parts which needs to be integrated with security from the scratch. Otherwise, it would be a headache. But when we are looking at current scenario, need of compliance is continuously increasing. It could be the stringent IT law or data privacy law or certain set of regulation for certain set of business where it is highly regulated, like banking. It could be insurance. So my question to Vijay Vati, how to use the compliance to complement and strengthen the security rather than just performing a checklist tasks and demonstrate it to the regulatory body? How we can really get the value out of compliance?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, see, I mean, so again, if you look at a CISO's life, right, 2 primary things around which it revolves is compliance and risk, right? So in that aspect, compliances are important, right? I mean, these are the law of the lands and a basic common minimum program, which from an industry perspective, from a regulator perspective, is important for all of the applicable industries to implement. So good thing about compliance is that it gives you, as I said, a least common minimum baseline with respect to security, with respect to privacy, for you to start with, right? And of course, as majority of the compliance would need you to do some level of internal audit, some level of external audits. So it also gives you that level of visibility, right? In terms of how are the various functions, how the various domains of security and information security and privacy, data security, how well they are structured, how well they are functioning within the environment. The only negative thing about compliance is if people get complacent and assume that that managing compliance is equal to managing risk. Day in and day out, we have seen examples where we can very easily say that being compliant does not necessarily mean being secure, right? Compliance are primarily a mechanism, a common minimum mechanism, which is advocated for everybody. But based on the kind of risk profile which you may have, right? Risk level will still very differently. So compliance gives you a baseline, but then as Dr. Vijay Kumar also mentioned, leverage compliance at baseline and start using it as one of the pillars of overall security and risk management within your environment. It would be good if we can define, let's say, overall cyber security maturity program within our organization, right? Meeting compliance will probably take you to a level 3 or maybe whatever level based on how well those compliance mandates have been implemented. But they may not necessarily put you at a place where you will be able to mitigate the various risks because of certain business factors, because of the kind of data which your enterprise holds, the kind of business transactions, right? The kind of channels which you use. So again, you have to leverage that information, leverage baseline to really identify the delta, identify the gap with respect to your desired security posture from a risk perspective, right? And then continuously work towards how do you bridge that delta, right? Typical compliance will mandate you to have, let's say, a log management in place, right? And somebody looking at those exceptions and all. But will that help you in terms of being able to very proactively identify and mitigate any advanced attacks within your environment? Possibly not. So that's where you have to understand and bring in a better capability from a proactive monitoring perspective, threat hunting perspective, which will then be able to mitigate what is required from a risk perspective. So that way, definitely leverage compliance to the best extent, because that gives you a baseline of your capabilities in the area of security. But of course, match it to the required level of risk posture which you would want to maintain for your enterprise, and work towards bridging that delta as
well. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just a quick one. Vikas had to leave because there was an emergency. So we just need to continue without him.
Thank you for the information, Meera. So when it is coming to the security, one of the most critical component is resources. That is the strongest value add to the security chain, or it could be the weakest part for your entire security program. So my question to Vijay Kumar, how do you address the resource visibility gap? Because the market is having a huge crisis when it is coming to the knowledgeable, skilled resources.
Okay. I thought resources can be put into two categories. I thought that this resources gap is the organization resources which we are trying to protect. That is one. Another is the resources that we are having to protect them. Another third kind of a resource is the tools that we need to protect. So let us address all three resources together. The first resource is the organization assets which are driving the business. So that is your IT resources, etc., which are driving those applications, which is the core heart of those applications. So we have seen that centralized asset manager, which is proactively doing the discovery scans in the traditional scenario. But that doesn't give the full visibility of your assets. There will be certain things which are either they are not responding to SNMP queries or ICMP queries, or they are in a zone where you will not be able to detect them. The second methodology is that you do the scan point from the endpoint itself. You can have your golden images from where your VMs are spinned up so that they can talk back to the central systems and tell them that here we are, and so that your central asset manager database could be enriched. The another input can become from your honeypots which are placed, which they will be getting continuously bombarded from either the internal people or because of security misconfiguration. So you will be able to discover so many IPs which are there in your sets, either because of data leaks from the network, or from a different resources which you are unheard of, or that resources which would have gone off. The third point, the fourth point of your input is your SIM tools or the network flows which are coming up, which can enrich your resource. So a good centralized asset manager, which is empowered with these 4 or 5 things which I told you, will give you a good visibility on the resources or the attack surface which your team has to control. So this is as far as internal visibility is concerned. For having an outside visibility, you need to have continuous scanning on your all exposure points, all public IPs, your ports, your APIs, etc. Now let me come to the second resource, that is the resources that you have to assess and protect the system. So there you need to have a continuous tab on what kind of technologies are coming to your teams. Let us say some application is coming on a Kubernetes platform, or let us say something different is coming on, say, AWS, which is extensively using the Lambda functions, say, of AWS, where there is serverless architecture. So do you have those resources who can understand these technologies, or who can protect, who can ask you to protect these kind of deliveries which are coming up? So you need to stay a step ahead. And the moment I said you, the moment you are in touch with your delivery heads on the business heads, you will come to know what is there in the strong pipeline. And you also have to have a visual on where the security is moving, or what new technologies, innovations are coming up, where you can identify and stay ahead, think ahead of time, and try to build your own resources, either through your permanent hiring, or maybe try to get it on a consultant role where things are new and you require to have a delivery in a very fast time frame. And the third resource is in terms of the tools. You need to see what all the latest development which are coming in, let us say, network intrusion protection systems, or maybe something may have been coming in your SIM technologies, or let us say new SOAR platform has come up which can give you a better understanding of use case or protection mechanisms. So all these three resources you need to have a very strong hold, and basic thing what you require as a CISO, what requires is a continuous study of technologies and think ahead of time to bridge these gaps.
Thank you, Vijay. Now, we are at the end of our discussion. Before we conclude, I would request both of you, from your huge practice experience in the field of information and securities and cybersecurity, what would be your recommendation regarding the visibility among the stakeholder as well as board? Because these are two very critical components that make the difference.
What I will like to have is just the two main agendas that you are aligned to the business, so that whatever metrics you are presenting of your security detection mechanisms, as well as what all attacks which are coming and you are mitigating them, that has to be aligned totally to the business verticals. So if you're in a connectivity business or in a health business, so you need to identify the pillars of your business, then you align your presentation or the controls, whatever you have, whatever attacks you mitigated, wherever the gaps are there, or if any critical area which is coming up which may affect the business, that needs to be correctly depicted to the board without raising unnecessary concerns. That will be my take on the presentation to the board.
What about you, Vijay?
No, I think Vijay said it correctly, right? I mean, board of course looks at what's the kind of business risk which we are looking at, right? I mean, so being able to clearly communicate to them the gaps which can have a big impact on business from a risk perspective, from perspective is what makes them understand it better. But another important aspect which I have personally seen board asking, right, in terms of it's not just good enough the risk which your organization is facing, right, but also if you can give them some instances with respect to what their peers in the industry, right, are doing, and how well on a comparative scale with respect to the overall industry, where do we stand? That at least gives them another view of what their peer in the same segment, same vertical is doing, which they are probably not doing. So again, if with these two things, I personally, my experience, I've seen board really being able to understand and appreciate some of these visibility gaps and help us to work towards that.
Yeah, I agree with Vijay Bharti. What actually I think we should do, rather than you saying about your industry peers and then where you are standing at, it is better to get an auditor, a reputed auditor who can compare you with other your industry peers and then assess you. That will give you more confidence with the board.
Right. So to conclude this entire discussion, first I would like to thank all of you for sharing some important pointer. And if we try to conclude it, most important thing is we should have clear business understanding, align that business with the regs and regulatory requirement and translate it to a technical control language, which is KPI KRA bound, so we can capture it and present it back to board. We should be able to communicate and collaborate with the different business vertical to address their need. And also, we must have a resources when it is coming to resource. As Vijay has mentioned, there are 3 category resource, of which we can have the first 2 category, but the most sensitive 3rd category we need to create continuously, that 3rd category to address our organizational need. And lastly, not least, that compliance. We need to continuously maintain the compliant state. Also, ensure the business protection, data protection. Now, when it is coming to other part of the story, how we'll demonstrate that where we are compared to our peers within the market. So it is better to go and take the support from the 3rd party where we can give a better confidence to the business. With this, I will hand over it to Meera and open this house for the question. Meera, you are not audible for us.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My apologies. So I was saying that Varinder was mentioning that you put the right question. We're seriously looking at a huge gap between requirement and availability. Even certified persons do not have hands-on experience. In terms of questions, I have one from Sanjay Tiwari, who says, what risks should CISO be responsible for? Would it be only tech risks or operational risk also? He believes that regulatory risk, particularly that related to information security, should also be partially, they should be responsible for. He'd love for one of you to help clarify this.
So, Meera, first question related to resource and the hands-on and knowledge, right? So when we are looking from a resource perspective, it is very good if we can get the person who is having a hands-on in a particular tool which you are looking for. But most importantly, we need to look at from a very practical perspective in a very rational way. What we are looking for, we need to focus on that. You are looking for a tool administrator or a security professional for whom you are going to demonstrate a growth path. So accordingly, you can take a call. If you are looking for a security professional for whom you are going to ensure a growth path as well as allow him to evaluate to the system, then we need to see that is he having a clarity about that particular tool, not the product. And how fast is his learning curve. If these two are clear for us, sometimes this kind of resource is going to add much more value rather than a resource who might only have the hands-on. So it is not that we need to only focus, are you able to install this particular tool and continuously able to manage that. It's a value add for the organization if it is the same tool, but it is not a wise call sometime to, if you get a very good resource, to just say no because that person might not have a hands-on on that. But again, it is a very situational call based on what situation you are that time. If you don't have somebody to handle your tool that moment, you need somebody who is knowing that tool, right? That is something. But again, as I say, it's a very situational call. It's like, when you are going for a car, you are going to purchase a car, you are not every time go and learn driving for a particular model. You need to know first how to drive safely. That is the basic skill. Now, next question.
While you're mentioning tool, I'll just bring up another question and bring that back. Saying a fool with a tool is still a fool. Do you think we have too many tools? Do you think we have too many tools? And what's your take on best of breed versus best of platform?
So the thing is that you can do a great security with the kind of required setup, but you may end up not doing good security with the world-class setup also. It is the human element which make the difference.
So true. Back to the earlier question, saying that what would you do? Tech risk, operational risk, regulatory risk. What should a CISO be more responsible for, or what should be on his priority?
So when it is coming to the risks from a technology perspective, when we do the risks assessment specifically, right, we need to look at from different angle. It's a first thing we do that from the business functionality perspective. Second, we do that from a data risks perspective. Third thing, we do it from operational perspective, and obviously we need to do the technology risks perspective. All together we need to club, and then we need to conclude to the actual risks of technology. And what is your input, Vijay? Both of you.
Yeah, so let me add to it. Okay, the moment you categorize your risk into technical or say operational or a business risk, at the core of your mind, what you should do is any risk which is arising because of IT assets in the background will fall under the category of CISO. Any IT asset, whether it is coming because of a new technology which has come up, let us say 5G technology which has come up. So if the backend systems are IT systems, not the human systems, it's not a physical security aspects. I'm talking about technical systems are coming in between. So that may affect even your procurement and leveraging the technology and bringing the technology into your organization. If you feel that there are not even protection controls or neither even compensating controls they exist, so that kind of a risk assessment has to begin in the very beginning itself, so that you can tell whether you are going for this technology or not there, or with what kind of risk you're going. So that should be your take on this, that any risk which is arising because of the IT assets in the back door should be part of the CISO.
Vijay Bharti, you have anything to add?
No, I think yeah, Dr. Rupa and Vijay captured it correctly. I mean, it's again CISO's responsibility is primarily information security, right? And then any regulations which falls in the domain of information security, so those regulatory risks also CISO has to own. But again, some of the other regulations from a legal perspective, and again, it's how clearly some of those roles and responsibilities are defined in the organization, how the R&R are very clearly identified. As Vijay mentioned, majority of the times, anything related to technology is really thought of as the realm of a CISO, right? In terms of anything related to information security, security aspects around that. So the big role to play as part of operational risk as well as regulatory risk. So I mean, from a CISO perspective, yes, of course, he has to be part of many of the risk management operations areas. But again, clarity in terms of clear definition of our roles and responsibility in some of the other areas, right? Operationally, for example, is there a clear segregation between CIO and CISO, right? In some organizations, it's very well defined. Some organizations, there is a bit of overlap, right, in terms of these two specific areas. I think regulatory is quite clear. Anything related to information security, privacy falls into the realm of CISO versus some of the other regulatory requirements.
So the best way while you are doing or conducting a risk assessment, when you are adopting a new technology or a project is going to hit, look at the technology, look at the architecture, keep at operational perspective, which geography that particular tool or that particular solution going to sit, and which are the geography that going to serve, from where your data is coming. Take all this, keep your mind blank, look at risk perspective from 365 degree. Once you conclude the risks, then you put the risks in different bucket, like it could be operational, it could be your reputational, financial, whatever. But there is no restriction that a technology risk person is not allowed to flag the financial risks. Risks is something you need to flag it. So you may look, while you are conducting, you may feel that there is a reputational risk or financial risk, flag it, send it to that department. They will deep down more. But because this is not my area, don't stop it there. Just flag it.
I have only two questions, we'll take more, but both of them are very, very interesting. So, you've been asked, if you were given 1 lakh rupees each, where and how would you spend it as a CISO in your company and where? Each one of you.
Yeah, I would like to spend it on my team. And there may be either taking them to somewhere outside and have a team bonding exercise conducted for them. Yeah, I said that I will take my team for an outdoor meeting and maybe have a team bonding exercise for that as well.
Yeah, see, it's from again, it depends upon where you are in the overall journey and all, but I would definitely like to spend in creating more visibility, right? We talked about in terms of some of the more deeper assessments to try to understand from where we are from a posture perspective before we spend money on preventive mechanism or deploying additional.
So if this is 1 lakhs INR, that 1 lakhs also in which term? INR, USD, I don't know. Okay. If it is 1 lakh, okay, if it is 1 lakh INR, I will go with Vijay Kumar, or alternatively, I mean, look at that if there is any person needs to be sponsored for certain certificate, that I can only do.
Yeah, because 1 lakh rupees is nothing as far as if you have to build any control, procure any tool, take any kind of a security services, it is insufficient. Only thing is this will serve to make your team morale better and they will be able to deliver better.
Fair.
Right. Only team, either for their team building or for their certification purpose. Meera, you have another question.
I have one more. If you have to pick one, being breached or being out of compliance, which one would you pick?
Definitely not being breached. Yeah, I mean, see, even if you're out of compliance, you can still do. There are ways to solve it, right? I mean, being breached, this is something really scary, right? I mean, that's what CISOs. Of course, regulations are also important. No, nothing denying on that. But being breached is definitely a nightmare scenario.
And the two of you don't want to comment.
Once I say that you are breached, okay. So if the breach results in non-compliance, so that becomes a serious issue. If you are non-compliant and if it results into a financial penalty, that again is a serious thing. So it depends upon what kind of a non-compliance you have and what kind of a breach scenario that is there.
Fair enough. That's really it in terms of questions. I don't think we have any more time for. There are a few more questions, but I will share it with the lot of you, and then maybe you can answer, and I can share it back with the person who's asked the question. For now, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time once again, both the panelists as well as the audience. Thank you very much. Please write back, tell us what you thought. If you have any more questions for the panel, let us know. We'll have it addressed for you. Afternoon again, there are lots of sessions. There are, I think, 10 more sessions left in the summit. Please do join us and look forward to meeting you there. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you all, and thank you, Meera and
Thank you.
CISO platform for providing this nice platform for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meera, and thank you,
Thank you.
CISO.
Bye.